Yes, that's right. It's Joe here, live for Joyrider TV, back with some very interesting Q&A. And we've got some hot topics in the preloaded department for you today. So stay tuned. As you will see on this week's headline, is we're going to be looking at upwind sailing on the course and why it may be that you're losing out. Now, if you didn't see last week's Q&A, we had a pretty deep dive into sailing downwind in the same way and why you might be losing out on the downwind legs. So check that one out as well as this one, and then that should have you covered for next time you're getting out on the race course. Okay, just need to check something here. Yeah, that looks all right. It's big, you've got to do a systems check when you're going live for Joyrider TV. That's very important. In other news, there's just 2 days remaining in the raffle competition to win the Wildwind Sailing holiday for 2 people for 1 week, or perhaps for 1 person for 2 weeks, if you want to play it that way. But I've put a link in the live chat, and I'll also put a link in the description below if you're watching this tomorrow or on Sunday. Then you can still enter and you could win and be out here getting some of this champagne. This week, the wind has been working very nicely, and it's the end of September. This amazing to still be getting these champagne conditions at this time. All right, so I'm going to jump in with the hot topic of upwind sailing. Why could it be that you are losing out to your competitors? So a lot more so on the upwind than with the downwind is that the boat setup is pretty crucial. Depends a bit on which class of boat you're sailing, but any class of boat, the mast rake and the rig tension are going to have a big effect. Okay, so we've got our trusty model here. So when we're talking about the mast rake, this is a recap. I'm sure a lot of you know this already, but mast rake means the angle of the mast in relation to the boat. So that would be a lot of mast rake. So when would we want a lot of mast rake? We'd want more mast rake if you're either sailing in stronger wind or with a lighter team. Now, you should either check previous videos on Joyrider TV or check with your class association's rig tuning guide for what the range of mast rake is for your type of boat. We're not going to go into that just now. Otherwise, getting to the bottom of this topic is going to take the full session, and we've got quite a lot to go through. But basically, the lighter that you are, or the stronger that the wind is, you want to go more towards the furthest back setting for the mast rake on your type of boat. And so that's when we have a lot of power, and we want to convert that power into more boat speed and more pointing ability. So as we put the mast further back, if we've got a boat with if this is our pivot point on the boat, which might be a dagger board, might be the sort of center point of our skeg kind of hull, which would probably be a little bit further back, or it might be the center point of our asymmetric hull. If we put the mast further back, that is going to bring the center of effort. This is our center of effort of the rig further back. And if we put that behind the pivot point, the center of lateral resistance, that is really going to help us to point the boat closer to the wind. In lighter winds, we're still going to want to point closer to the wind, but we are going to want more power. As we bring the rig further back, we are going to lose a little bit of power. So having the mast more upright is going to give us more power, but we never want to go so far upright that the mast is actually like perpendicular to the boat. It's always going to want to be back a little bit. It isn't covered on the videos that I've made on Joyrider TV. Then check out your class's rig tuning guide, where it will tell you what the range of mast rake is. And then the rig tension, it's kind of opposite if depending on what type of boat you're sailing. So if we use the two standards, the Hobie 16, rig tension, lighter wind when you're looking for power, we want to pull the rig tension on nice and tight. If the wind is super light, like only just enough wind to go along, we don't want it too tight. We want the rig. So when we're talking, we've been through this again before, but when we're talking about how much is the right amount, tight is as much as you can pull on the jib halyard. And then loose is like if you ease 2 inches, 2 or 3 inches maximum of jib halyard rope on your jib halyard on your Hobie 16, then that is the maximum that we are going to loosen for when we want a loose setting on the jib halyard. Is that all right? Does that make sense? Yes, I hope so. All right, so that is our range on the jib halyard. And so back to where we were, that's our range. So we want it looser if the wind is super light, like really only just enough wind to be able to sail the boat. And then once the wind picks up enough so that we can sheet in the main sheet because we've got a bit of pressure in the mainsail, that's when we want to tighten the rig up. Of course, you wouldn't want to be doing this while you're actually on the race course. You'd want to do it between races because very important in the light winds, upwind and downwind, is to be as still as possible on the boat. We are going off on a bit of a tangent here, by the way, but every time you move around on the boat is going to bob in the water, and that little bit of airflow that you've got on your rig is going to be disturbed. That bit of flow of water around your hulls, around your foils, is going to be disturbed, and you are going to slow down significantly every time the boat moves. I had quite a fun and challenging game. It was actually when I was sailing with Mark last year in the Ionian Regatta, and it was very light winds at the start. And we made it like a buzzer game that every time I felt the boat move because of his movements, I made an annoying buzzing noise. I know this might seem cruel to the crew, but because we really didn't want to disturb our flow of air or flow of water around the boat. So if I felt the boat move at all, I'd go beep to say you move probably too quickly in those conditions. So we wouldn't be changing the jib halyard tension during a race because that would certainly get the boat bobbing along, unless it was a very long distance race where otherwise we were going to lose out. We would then loosen so we're tightening the rig once there's enough wind to be able to sheet in nicely. And then once we get to the amount of wind where we're starting to want to lose power, then you would know if it's this much wind, because probably about 14 is when you sailing upwind. If you feel that as you're getting gusts, the boat doesn't want to go faster, it just wants to lift the hull and the rudders feel particularly heavy. If that's the case, then that is the time when you need to loosen the rig off slightly, and that will allow the boat to breathe effectively and it will go faster in the gusts rather than just become overpowered. So that is with the 16 or boats similar to that. So on the other hand, we've got our Formula 18 style boat where the rig tension we are going to set according to your crew weight. So if your crew is heavier, we're going to have the rig slightly looser. We're going to be setting this using the loose gauge, which is the rig tension gauge. It gives us a very accurate setting for the rig tension on these types of boats. Now, so if you say, I sail a Hobie 16, can I use a loose gauge? I would think probably not. I think because the 16 has the plastic coating on the shrouds, that is going to give you an inaccurate reading. But also because the tension that you're generally running on a Hobie 16, do correct me if I'm wrong, anybody who races a Hobie 16, but the tension in the rig that we're running on the Hobie 16 is not enough to make using the gauge viable. But yeah, so on an F18, we want to be hitting on the loose gauge about 24, maybe 25 if you're a heavy team, and if you're a light team, about 27, 28 on the loose gauge. So those settings are going to make a big difference to your upwind performance. So I think, and then there are a great many parts to the puzzle of why aren't we going so well upwind. If you feel that your rudders are heavy, every time that your rudders feel heavy, that is like, if you're having to pull hard on the tiller extension, that is drag. That is going to slow you down. So if you feel that weight in the rudders, you are being slowed down because you're effectively having the rudders putting the brakes on. So if that is the case, something is wrong. And the first port of call to check first thing to check, if your rudders are feeling heavy, this is going to sound obvious, but it's actually the rudders themselves. So when the boat is on land, this is good to do. You know, when you go to launch your boat, when the boat is on the wheels, put the bows of the boat on the floor like this. Here we go. Accurate drawing here. Boat is on the wheels, bows of the boat on the floor so that you can put the rudders down. And then when the rudders are down, see if when they're locked down, if you pull the rudder blade backwards, is it able to move away from the boat? If it is, that is going to create heavy steering, which is going to cause that drag, which is going to slow you down. So again, check the videos on servicing your rudders if you need to make those adjustments. But that is the one that's really going to affect you. The other one is if your rudders move from side to side at all, then that is also going to slow you down. But this is going to be the major one. If that comes backwards away from the boat, that's really going to affect your speed. All right. So heavy rudders, yes, that's going to slow you down. So there's also for the upwind in the classes of boat where you've got a choice of batten stiffness. The stiffness of the battens is going to really affect the amount of curve in the mainsail. Now, in super light wind, we don't want too much curve. Like if there's only just enough wind to go forwards. Now, in most classes, there will be a minimum wind limit of when they'll actually start a race. But maybe you're sailing a long distance race where it's just going to go regardless of wind strength. If it is super light, you don't want too much curve in the sail because the wind hasn't actually got the energy to go around that whole curve. So you wouldn't change the battens in the whole mainsail for super light wind. It's and very, I'd say, unless you're sailing in the Olympic Games, probably you wouldn't change the whole batten set because of the wind forecast. But what you would maybe do is change the top 2 or maybe 3 battens. If you've got a batten which is very soft, it's going to bend very easily. So this is my example of a soft batten. So if we apply pressure, it's going to bend very easily, which is going to put more curve into the sail. So soft batten, better for the light to moderate wind, and more curve in the sail is going to give us more power. So if we've got a nice bit of curve in the top of the sail, that's going to help us to have more power, especially if we're perhaps heavier on the boat and the wind is light, not super light, but light, then that is going to help. Now, if we've got a very stiff battens, they are going to help us to keep the top of the sail flat, which is going to be in our favor for when the wind gets stronger, especially if we're a light team. As soon as you're double trapezing, then that is when we want the top of the sail to be flatter, because that otherwise all that curve is going to create drag, and that is going to slow us down. So stiffer battens for heavier winds. Otherwise, the soft battens are going to cause drag. Now, on certain classes of boat, like on the Dart 18, Dart 15, Hobie 14, Hobie 16, and boats like that, you don't have a choice to change your battens. Maybe you've been shaving your battens a bit, maybe against class rules slightly, but nobody's going to check. So does it matter? I don't know. And you might think, well, I'll put in the shaved ones, which are going to be a bit softer. Or I might put in the stiff ones for the heavy wind. So you might do that. That's more on correct amount of sheeting on the main and the jib. In lighter winds, we don't want to be over sheeted. So you have to be very careful not to sheet the sails in too much. Sheeting the sails in too much is basically going to wind up until the point where you're flying the hull or trapezing. Having the sail in too tight or the sails in too tight is actually going to slow you down more than having them too loose. So if in doubt, if you feel that the boat isn't going fast enough for the conditions, just try, this is without using the telltales or anything, just try easing some sheet out a bit and see what that does to your boat speed. Yeah. And then, of course, we have been through how to use the telltales before, what your correct amount of sheeting is. Again, just trying to go through all this without really going in too deep on any particular parts, because we could be here for a very long time if we were going to do that. So sail setting, the jib does need to be reasonably tight if you are sailing with a boat with a jib. If it's light winds, pull it in tight and then ease 2 inches of sheet so that it's not too flat in the light winds. And then once the jib is set, light winds eased slightly, and then heavy winds with the jib really tight. We want that jib really flat in the heavy winds, because any curve in the jib, when the wind is strong with double trapezing, that is going to cause drag and slow us down. Right. So once the jib is set, that is how we're going to determine our course. So the course should be fairly straightforward in that you can just watch the telltales on the jib. Again, we've been through this before, and the telltales on the jib will tell us which course we should be sailing. And then as the wind gets stronger, we're going to allow the inside telltale to lift more. So if these are our telltales, let's have that one as the inside one, that one as the outside one. We'll just drop the mast, put it on the trailer. So the inside one on our side of the boat, in fact, let's put them the way around. The outside telltale that we can see through the jib should always straight back. It means we're not pointing close enough to the wind, or if we're sailing away from the wind, it means that the jib is in too tight. And then in really light winds, we want our inside telltale, the one on this side of the jib, to be flying straight back. So let's just draw in the jib. There we are, easy. And then as the wind increases, we need to start to let this telltale lift, because if we try to keep that telltale flying straight back as the wind increases, what's going to happen is the boat's going to start sailing faster, and then the apparent wind is going to come more round from the front. And if we chase the apparent wind like that, we're going to end up actually sailing on a reach, but thinking that we're sailing upwind. So as the wind increases more, we allow this to go up, and it takes a bit of time and time on the water. The best way to do that against other boats on the race course. If the other boats are in the same class, even better. And then when the wind is really strong, we're double trapezing, we've got the boat really depowered, we'll actually have that telltale lifting very high up, maybe even have the front part of the jib just back winding slightly, so we really are sailing close to the wind when it gets that strong. So that would be our course, our efficient course to be steering on the upwind. And whenever we're having to alter course or change course, if the wind is light, we want to just make all our course changes very smooth and very small. Any big course changes in light wind, again, it's going to really put the brakes on and slow the boat down. So again, we want to be playing the buzzer game as well as with our movements on the boat, but on our steering as well, because we don't want to be putting the brakes on. And then after the course, these are all fairly equally important, course, sail setting, but then we've got the trim. Also, of course, in sail setting comes things that we've been over. To be honest, we've been over them so many times that we're not going to go over them at all just now. But downhaul, mast rotation, outhaul, other things that we can adjust to change the shape of the mainsail as we sail along. But the other thing that we really need to focus on is crew positions, upwind. Here we are, we're going upwind. And what we're trying to do with our crew positions is the sort of bottom line of what we're trying to achieve is we're trying to have the boat flat on the upwind. Bows up. We don't want it bows down. We want it totally true. So totally flat, because with most boats, almost all boats, I'm pretty sure, they are designed that when the boat is flat like this, that is when it's going to be the fastest. And it's on the upwind point of sail when this is the most important. If you start, there's a school of thought, used to be my school of thought until I learnt better, to sail with the bow down upwind, because I thought that is going to stop the rudder from dragging. It's going to bring the mast more upright, perhaps a bit more power out of the rig. Light winds, this is, by the way. And it's going to give us maybe a longer waterline length. But what this is actually doing, when we bring the bow down like this, we are bringing our foils back like this, and we're going to be losing lift from the foils. So we don't want to be putting the rig forwards like this, because we are going to be losing lift. So and having the boat flat, it means we've got more rudder in the water. The dagger board is going to be more straight down, which is more efficient. We're going to get more lift, and we're going to end up in our windward destination a lot earlier than getting the bow right down. If we're going through a choppy bit of water and the boat is slapping, maybe you sail a boat which has got a flat bottom, then yes, we want to get far enough forwards. So if we're now on a flat bottom boat, quite easily done. Oh, except it only works one way. All right. So if we're on a flat bottom boat like this, we just want to make sure that if it's starting to slap because of chop or waves, we just want to make sure the point of the bow is just into the water, because that's going to stop that sort of slapping feeling if we are sailing a flat bottomed boat there. Okay, so that is some of the kind of main cornerstones of actual boat speed on the upwind. So if we haven't got boat speed, we are going to always get punished on the upwind, well, all the way around the course. And then if we move on to our general strategy, which way are we going to sail around the course? Well, like we talked about with the downwind, except not quite as significant on the downwind, on the upwind, sorry, is we want to sail where the wind is strongest. Because when we're sailing in stronger wind with a catamaran, the speed of the boat is significantly increased if we're sailing in a stronger wind. On the downwind, like we talked about last week, it's even more significant. But on the upwind, it's still significant. And we're just trying to get into the strongest wind. So if there's no other contributing factors, we want to sail in the strongest wind. So if the wind's stronger over here, we want to go this way. Of course, if the course, if the wind is quite, the course is quite small, we're leaving marks to port generally. If we sail over to the right side of the course, we only have to tack once. Yeah, so this should come into our, when we're constructing our strategy for which way to go, we want to go to the side. If the course is small, especially if the wind is strong, we don't want to be putting in extra tacks. If the wind is lighter, extra tacks aren't going to punish us quite as much. Now, the reason for this is in light winds, everybody is sailing slower. So when we tack, the amount of extra distance the other boats are going to get is less because they're not sailing as fast. Whereas when the wind is strong, maybe the boat's doing like 12 knots. If we're putting in an extra 2 tacks, we're going to lose a lot of distance to these boats which are just charging at 12 knots. Whereas in light winds, the boats may be doing 6 knots. So we're not going to lose as much distance when we're tacking more times in the light winds. So we want more wind if possible, but also we want to be sailing the shortest distance. So if when we start sailing off this way, if the wind starts moving round and coming onto the nose, then we want to tack. So then on that tack, we're going to start to be picked up towards the buoy. But the other thing that we want to be looking at when sailing around the course, for our general strategy, by the way, I'm going to wind up this upwind bit in just a few minutes so I can get onto the live chat and onto the other preloaded questions. But we don't want, unless we're coming first or last, we don't want to leave our tack if we are coming over to the left side, so that we're coming into the top mark right at the buoy. Couple of reasons for this. Number one reason is if we're not coming first or last, there's a strong chance there is going to be a load of traffic coming in on starboard tack with right of way. And if we're having to steer around one boat and then another boat, we're going to lose a lot of distance there. So we don't want to come in on such a critical point of the course. Instead, if we arrive 10 boat lengths down by tacking earlier down here, then we're going to have more options. All right. The other reason why we don't want to come into the buoy here is because to get onto our downwind course, we're going to have to turn the boat through 180 degrees, which means we're not going to carry any speed through that turn. It's going to be like we're just wanging the brakes on. Boat is going to be pretty much stopped as we go around the buoy. There's also going to be a greater risk if we're trying to tack and bear away as one move. There's a greater risk of hitting the buoy as well. So reasons why we don't want to end up on port tack at the buoy. So coming in 10 boat lengths on starboard tack into the buoy is going to be optimal there. Further away, if we're going right over to do what we might call banging the corners, that's fine. But the difficulty with banging the corner is judging when to tack. The likelihood that you're going to have to sail a greater distance, because actually being able to judge the ley line, the further you are away from it, it's very difficult. So they're just some things to consider. All right, I'm going to leave that there for this time with the upwind. Why are we losing out? We could go into what happens if we've got dirty wind, like if we're sat here with a boat here. What do we do? Do we sit and take it? Do a bit faster, but then we're going to escape from his dirty wind, perhaps? Or do we sail low? We go for more speed to break through his dirty wind. Me personally, I'm a sort of go low kind of guy and break through the dirty wind, because number one in why am I losing downwind as well as boat speed is because we're sat in dirty wind. If we're in clean wind with a clean lane all the way until we have to tack, then that is when we are less likely to be learned entertaining and coming through loud and clear for everyone. So I'm just going to check in with everybody who's checking in. Okay, so in Ohio, we've got Mark and Janet getting the remnants of Hurricane Helena up here. Yeah, I didn't realize there was a bit of weather going on in the US, but I hope everybody's all right out there and staying safe. Yeah, so, and you know, only get out at the weekend if you feel it is safe to do so. Yes, that's right. We are 2 weeks now into the competition, and I the guys at water speed that the development of the Android version, Android as version. So that is, they are listening and they're doing what they can to get that moved forward so that Android users can get on the water speed app as well. But 6 weeks of speed competition still running back, in fact, to see if I could get that bad boy up to 20 knots for 5 seconds to beat my previous 16 speed. So there will be a video. That video is early. Everyone can become a channel member. Just check it out on the channel page on YouTube. You could become a member. Very nice. Okay, so the 3 levels I've made in a long time. Of course, apart from the competition, good fun just to get out there, flying the hull, champagne conditions, really good, with the very nice looking bad boy 95, which looks like that. Oh, here we go. It's a question for you. Do you think I should put the numbers on the mainsail? We've got the numbers on the jib. I think it looks quite nice with the main being plain. Answers in the comment section, please. All right, we've got Spicy Fist on board. He's a +1 for flying the whole video. Great stuff. Yeah, I certainly thought so. Hello to Ryan in Maui. Great to have you on board. Well, we've got Bram from Brighton on the south coast of the UK. He's in the live chat. Nice to have. The Earl of Porridge, as you'd expect, tuning in from Berlin, as is Johannes. Nice. Well, hello to everybody who is tuning in from Berlin and the rest of Germany as well. All right, we've got Eric on board, safe and sound from the storm, and got to stay home today, letting me be on the live chat. Okay, well, nice that you're safe there, Eric, and hope that this storm passes soon. All right. So we've got Lathomate, who asks, which life jacket or buoyancy aid, or PFD, I think is the other popular term, is the best? Well, my favorite one of all time, historically, is the one that you see in most of the videos that was looking very tatty, which is a Crew Saver Kite, Kite, buoyancy aid, which unfortunately did get discontinued, but it got replaced by one called the Crew Saver SZ 50. SZ side zip 50. 50 newtons, so that's how much float it has. That was my those ones I feel are just the best, fairly basic all-round buoyancy aids. But since then, since I went to Sweden, I'm now representing Forward Whip, the brand, and the Forward Whip impact protection vest is very cool. Makes you look like Batman, gives you abs, and it's very low profile, so not very bulky. And that is a really nice buoyancy aid, but it does come through at a higher price point. I think the Crew Saver is a great option. So check that one out. Thanks for the question. All right, so we've got Declan on board. Hello, Declan. Hope you're doing well there. All right, we got Kevin in Illinois, 30 miles per hour wind, and I have to work. Boo. Yeah, that is often the case. Yeah, I do believe it was pretty champagne here this afternoon in Vasiliki Lefkas, Greece, and sadly I couldn't get out on the water. I know you're probably thinking, shut up, you're getting out on the water more than anyone. You can miss a day here and there. Still burns though. still burns when it's champagne. All right, Paul's with us. Paul sails a C2 Formula 18, Goodall design with the deck sweeper mainsail. His friend has a Nacra F18. He changes the deck sweeper for a non-deck sweeper sail in light wind. Is that the correct move? I really couldn't say. I think the proof would be, do you notice his performance is that much better with the regular sail? How do you compare when you're both using deck sweepers? I think if he's your friend, I think some testing could be on the cards. So go out, same conditions, deck sweepers. Yes, it's going to be a bit of a pain to swap mainsails, and then same conditions with your friend going back to a non-deck sweeper mainsail, and see if there is a difference in how the boats compare. I would have assumed that the deck sweeper should be more efficient in all conditions because of that end plate effect that you get from the boat, the sail coming right down to the trampoline. But if anybody in the comments or the live chat has got any insights into this, please do get involved. Perhaps in super light wind, like we were talking about before, maybe the conventional mainsail is more efficient. But unfortunately, I really am not in a place to say one way or the other with any degree of confidence. But thanks for the question, Paul. And maybe some testing is the way forwards. All right, we've got Mr. Tony KP on board in Ebeltoft, Denmark. Great to have you with us. By the way, just before we went online today, the speed stick has been updated, and yes, there's been a shake-up, and the shake-up on the speed stick has come from Denmark. That's all I'm going to say. You'll have to check that out. All right, John's on board. Hello, John. Happy Friday to everybody in Joyrider TV land. All right, Declan says, watch the raid videos for how crew position really affects a heavier crew. Yes, I still have a buzzer going off in my head when I re-watch them. Yeah, changing modes. This is something else that could be brought in to this upwind chat. If you're sailing in strong winds, double trapezing, and then the wind goes light, it is really important to, when you're double trapezing, your crew weight is probably, I don't need to use, your crew weight should be kind of like centered around the dagger boards or amidships, midway, just behind the shroud. That should be where your crew weight is focused. And then when the wind goes light, you really need to get your weight further forwards to avoid dragging the sterns of the boat. So really dynamic positioning on the boat as the wind is changing. Yeah, good point there, Declan. At the windward mark, which is better tack to starboard on meeting traffic or bear away and lose position? Oh, tack on to starboard. And what are you thinking about making that decision? Yeah, so if we're coming into the buoy, let's say we are coming into the buoy and we're coming in on port tack and there's boats coming in on starboard. If what we can't really do is tack in here and expect to be able to get around the buoy. That isn't going to happen. So what we have to do if we're in this situation is we're going to have to bear away behind the first boat, and we're going to have to use some judgment. And this is where it gets a little bit exciting. because we can't tack here because we'd be tacking in this guy's water. We're allowed to tack if by the time this boat has to alter his course, if the sails are filled on the new side and we're going forwards, then we're in the right to do that. But if we're sort of midway through the tack and he's having to turn to go around us, then we have just infringed a rule, which means, yeah, we're going to have to do a 360 to exonerate ourselves. So what we'd probably have to do here, option one, more dangerous, is just to come in, tack behind. But then, of course, we're tacking. This guy's going to sail over the top of us. He's going to be there. And sitting in his dirty wind, what's going to happen there is we're not going to be able to point as high. So we might not be able to make it around the buoy. So if we rewind a little bit again, what might be the best course of action, which is probably what we do, is if there's enough of a gap, then we'd sail as close to this boat as possible, get beyond this boat, so we're not going to be tacking in his water, and then tack here. By the time we've done that, he'll be here, but we'll be safe to get around the buoy. We won't be infringing anyone. So that is probably what we do. Now, a different choice would have to be made if we're coming in like here. You'd be like, ooh, this is looking a bit more tricky. So then what we'd want to do is get in as far up as possible, tack underneath him, by which time he'll have moved forwards. Yes, we'll be in dirty wind, but otherwise we're going to have to sail a big distance and duck some sterns to get around the buoy. All right. Continuing in the live chat. Hello. Ryan says, I've got on the water speed a little bit. Gonna get some more this weekend. Great stuff. Yeah, cool. Looking forward to seeing you up there on the leaderboard. All right. Ryan says, highly recommend being a channel member on via YouTube. Yeah, so on the channel page, just underneath whichever video it is displaying, I think there's just a button that says join. Click that one, and then you just subscribe to the channel, and there you are. You get the main perk with being a channel member, as well as having your name in green in the live chat, is that you do get early access to all the videos. So as soon as I've finished editing a video, I'll make it available for all of the channel members, and then have it actually go out at the regular times for everyone else. There we go. All right, Zach is on board. Hello, Zach. Good to have you with us. Watching from work. Not sure if it's my phone or your internet still. Okay, hopefully this broadcast is coming through smoothly. Got Jens, channel member Jens, on board. Good to have you with us, Jens. Good evening. Zach feels his connection has been improved by hitting the like button. So maybe you could do that too. All right. So Declan says standard main versus the deck sweeper. Perhaps the boom is a factor in the downwind comparison, thinking about the outhaul ability of the deck sweeper boom. There we go. All right. And all right. Back to the preloaded department. Thanks for everyone for getting involved with the live chat. And I've got a fair bit in the preloaded. So if anybody's got any questions they want to ask in the live chat, if these questions can be accompanied by a super sticker, then that is really going to tip the balance. Anyway. All right. So this next question comes from Alpha Watt, who just wants to know, this is the sort of question I like. How did I get those shots in the flying the hull video? All right. If this is the boat, He said, was it a drone? It was not a drone. What basically what I had is I have what I call the long pole. And the long pole was basically going from the beam here through the middle of the bridle wires and then out the front here with the camera pointing straight back. So it was a fixed long pole. Now, before, I've always used the 360 camera with the long pole. This time I was using the regular GoPro, and I was very pleased with the results. So I thought that worked very nicely. Okay, so next one, Scott says, I'm still learning to sail downwind effectively. Is there, yeah, this question has actually been trending on the Wild Wind Beach this week, is why wouldn't you, in lighter winds, have on the downwind sailing 2 sails, why wouldn't you have your traveller out all the way and the main sheet loose as well? Well, the reason why, by the way, if you didn't know, what I'd suggest is on the downwind, if you're sailing 2 sails, so no spinnaker, have the traveller set somewhere between 2/3 and 3/4 of the way out of the range. So let's so if this is our back beam, there's a tow straps like that. So to have the traveller, this is the end of the range, that's the middle, to have the traveller about here rather than all the way to the outside, it means in the lighter winds we're going to sail with a looser main sheet, which is going to put more twist into the mainsail. And what that twist is really good for is the twist is good for acceleration. So what we want in the lighter winds especially is to really be what would be the right word, to be getting the most advantage out of every bit of wind that comes along. So that is why we're going to sail with the traveller slightly further in. Now, the times when we're going to have the traveller all the way out is either in really light winds. So we've been talking about really light winds all the way out, mainsail all the way out, get as far forwards as you can and sail deep, or in really strong winds when we're just doing whatever we can not to stick the nose in. Of course, in the stronger winds, we do want to travel in before we jibe. So there we go. That is the reason why I'm not traveling out all the way if I'm going downwind with 2 sails. All right, just jumping back in to the live chat. So Paul says he's all right. So this is on the topic of supporting Joyrider TV. It's a good topic because without your support, everybody out there, the Joyrider TV channel would have stopped broadcasting a long time ago. So it really is your support that's keeping things going, especially now I've quit my day job and I'm relying on the YouTube channel to pay for things that are important, such as living. Very important. Yeah, so Paul's already supporting through Patreon, another great way of supporting the channel. In your opinion, would you rather have support through YouTube or Patreon? Good question. I think it's pretty much even, to be honest, with Patreon and YouTube. There is one extra benefit. The benefit of Patreon is occasionally I'm posting on there extra, like if there's something that I think is relevant, like rig setting stuff, rope lengths, what else? The index of videos, but anybody can watch that, have a look at that. But so extra bits of information on Patreon, whereas the benefit to channel members on YouTube is this early access to the videos. So I would say if you are happy to wait for the videos, Patreon is the one. Whereas if you do want the early access to the videos, then being a channel member on YouTube is better. So it doesn't really make a lot of difference from my end financially if you're supporting the channel either way, but it's just what you feel you're going to get more from. And I think if it was me, I would probably support a channel through channel memberships, because that would mean if I'm going to be on YouTube anyway, it's one less website you have to subscribe to, I suppose, if we were going to look at it like that. Thanks very much for your continued support, Paul, and everybody else who's been supporting the channel, like Ryan, who's just chipped in with a super sticker. Thanks very much for that, Ryan. And because you've chipped in with a super sticker, I'm going to answer your question immediately. Do you switch the video pole when you tack and change point of sail, or just set it to one side? Yeah. And Ryan adds he likes the ease of supporting Joyrider TV through the channel memberships. Yeah. Yeah. I just keep the pole on one side. I suppose it would require some sort of engineering to switch the pole from side to side when changing tacks. But I think the shot that we get when the pole is on the leeward side is pretty cool as well. And generally, there's the constant thing in the videos that you'll see, the strong wind videos, is the direction of the sun, where on the way out you see a bit more clearly, and then on the way back you get a bit more glare from the sun. So that's why I kind of set the boat up more for starboard tack on the way out for the filming, because I know that on port tack on the way in, the images aren't going to be quite as good anyway. So we're just going for gold on the way. That doesn't mean to turn the video off when I tack round or jibe on the outside, because there's always some solid gold which happens on the way in. Maybe I should always deliberately bin it just before getting to the moorings. That would keep people tuned in, I think. All right, thanks for that, Ryan. All right, so we've got Bernard on board, who was just here in Vasiliki Bay 2 weeks ago. Nice to have you with us. He's in Austrian now, sailing a Hobie 15. This weekend we have the storm. Seems like it's following you. Yeah, sorry about that. All right, we got Ward on board. That rhymes. Hello, Ward. What is the right translation of drag? I get the Declan's already steamed in there, so I'm just going to read Declan's description. Drag is resistance, the force that acts in opposition to an object in motion. That is a good definition. I'm glad you did that, Declan, because I don't believe I would have come up with quite such a good definition. If you used a dictionary, I should then still, it's very good. All right, great topic, says Bernard. Thank you very much. Spicy Fist. Here we go. Any tips on stopping a GoPro from just fogging up and retaining water droplets? Can't get mine clear. What I found works the best for keeping a clear lens is to sail on fresh water. I know that's not a very good solution, but whenever I go to sail on the Italian lakes, it is the easiest filming, because when there's not salt water, the water just goes off the lens, and yeah, it's nice. But I have used have I got some here? Where is it? Give us a second. I'm looking. No. Maybe in this one. Sorry, it's very... We've gone a little bit less professional here during this segment, but I got this stuff. I had to get it from America, and it's called something like Clear X or something, which is effectively the same as Rain X that you get for a car windscreen, and you put it on your lens, and it apparently makes the water just bead off immediately. But it didn't work for me at all, so I don't even know why I'm telling you this. But I think the reason it didn't work for me is because it's so hot here that as soon as you get the water on the lens of the GoPro, see the salt in the water sets on the lens, and you get that kind of fogginess. So that is one reason why I constantly sail with more than one camera. I know that's not a very good option for most people who would just have one, but I'm sailing with one camera that is always facing backwards, because that one is less likely to get any spray. So I'm always going to have one view which is clean, which is the one that faces backwards. And I'm very wary of getting of keeping the lenses as splash free as possible. The other way that I cope with splashed lenses is just to keep getting them splashed, however possible that is, because every time it gets splashed, it's clear for a couple of minutes. And then the other thing I do is thumbing the lens on the helmet cam. Yeah, it's difficult though. Now then, if you're using a I haven't got one here, but one of the older GoPros which actually fits in like a waterproof housing, then they were a constant issue with fogging up. And the only way I could stop them from fogging, you know, even with putting these kind of like things that are meant to absorb the moisture in the case, was once it's adjusted to the temperature, to then very carefully open the case and let the air get in to defog the lens, and then close it again and then start. But it's difficult with the waterproof case. It's even more difficult to keep a clean lens. All right, so next question in the preloaded. This is from AG Flowers. Okay, so this was from the video where I was sailing with Kush. It was great having Kush out here. It's always nice to meet people who... Kush has been a strong supporter of Joyrider TV pretty much since when I started. So it was really nice to finally meet him and get out for a sail with him on the 16. It was pretty gusty and a wild ride, that's for sure. But what AG Flowers says is there was a moment in the video where we had going downwind, monster gust, and rather than trying to bear away in the gust, which would be the more efficient thing to do, I headed up hard. Now, the reason that I did this, this is a strong question, actually. You're sailing downwind, and the optimal way for your boat speed and efficiency is when you get a gust, you want to turn more downwind. As soon as you feel that gust come on, turn more downwind. That means you gain more depth on your downwind point of sail. You gain more boat speed, and it's a very smooth way of tackling the gust. The way to do this is you have to turn as soon as you feel the gust, the wind strength increase. Now, on the occasion when I was out with Kush, we were sailing along, very nice, probably 16 knots of wind, and then we got a violent gust, which was probably another 5 or 6 knots of wind, you know, without really very much warning, from So just a sudden increase. So if we'd have tried to bear away, the problem with that was going to be that the boat didn't have time for its speed to increase, which would have meant we wouldn't have actually depowered at all. The way that we're depowering by bearing away is by increasing the boat speed, and that is what's taking the sting out of the gust. Whereas if you're not increasing the boat speed and just turning more downwind, the gust's just going to hit you harder, and that would drive the bows underwater immediately, and we would have flipped it. Not wanting to flip it, I felt when you feel a gust hit you and immediately you feel the bows go down, the first time that you actually feel that increase in wind, if the bows immediately go down, that is when it's your only option to not stick the nose in is to really pretty not violently, pretty assertively turn the boat into the wind. Now, here's our wind direction. So if we turned up towards the wind a little bit, like to here, then we're basically transferring the risk of capsizing forwards to a risk of capsizing sideways, because we've then got the wind hitting the boat side on. So to actually avoid the capsize by heading up from a downwind, we need to go all the way from there to there. It's once we're through that beam reach, the half wind point, that is when the risk of the capsize is gone. So it really needs to be an assertive move. And you will have seen from that video, when we were at the half wind point, we did start to really lift the bow, the hull quite a lot, which sent me flying into the middle of the boat. But I managed to keep heading up, which saved us from the swim. There you go. So when turning up on a downwind point of sail, this is a summary of that thing. On a downwind point of sail, if you get the sudden gust which drives the bows down before you've had a chance to alter course downwind to just to go with it and go faster, if that happens, you do need to head up. And yes, you need to head up pretty hard if it's a really sudden, violent gust. There we go. That was a very good question. And I hope you're happy with that answer. If you're happy with that answer, then why not take your spare finger, hit the like button. Nice. Final preloaded question. This comes from Graham. This is in response to the flying the hull. Thank you, Bernard, for a good answer. Yes, I like to know that the answer is good. It's always nice. So in response to the very, I think, best Vasiliki based video of the season, personally, the flying the hull video from this week, Graham says, is flying the hull just for show, or is it an exercise? Because what it seems is when you start flying the hull, the boat slows down. It's a very slow way to sail. In answer to that, I would say yes, yes, and yes. So optimal, any type of boat is really going to increase in speed every point of sail if there's enough wind to have the windward hull just out of the water, just out. So a good way of gauging it is so that the tip of your windward rudder blade is just in, just the tip, they call that in the trade. That is optimal amount of hull lifting. If you lift the hull higher than that, on the upwind especially, then you are going to start slowing down. On the downwind, you're not going to slow down as much, and you're going to be able to sail deeper. So this is if you're sorry, this is if you're sailing a boat with a spinnaker, like so flying the hull a little bit higher when you've got the spinnaker up, that is going to allow you to get deeper downwind. But if you're flying a boat hull upwind, just the tip of the rudder blade in the water is optimal. And then just if you can keep it there, that is the sweet spot. Now, why was I flying the hull so high? Because it looks great. It's great fun, and it really is a very good exercise in control. If you know, and if you are sailing, I know a lot of you out there, you sail solo. Like I know it's not always easy to find a crew, and it's a lot of fun on something like a 16 to sail solo because you can lift the hull in less wind. But even if you're sailing with another person and there's not so much wind, maybe get the other person on the leeward side of the boat and just practice sailing, flying the hull, get that windward hull out of the water, use your body weight, your point of sail, your steering, and your main sheet just to keep the hull flying for as long as possible. And by the way, we have got coming up soon, probably in about 4 weeks' time, the return of Show Us Your Cat. And perhaps we could start doing, I know it's the wrong time of year to make this announcement when a lot of people in the Northern Hemisphere are looking at perhaps not long until they have to start thinking about packing the boat up. But how about we started a feature in Show Us Your Cat of Show Us Your Hull Flying, and perhaps a standard camera mounting would be the backwards facing camera from the bridle wires or the helmet cam. But I think the backwards facing one really shows the air underneath the windward hull. And just send me video of you flying a hull for as long as possible, and we could actually have that as a segment in Show Us Your Cat. I think that would be really good fun. What do we think? I thought so. All right. Thanks very much to Cucks Ollie for chipping in with a super sticker. Very kind of you there. Who has got an opinion on the flying the hull topic, says flying the hull is much more fun. And, you know, at the end of the day, if you've got two hulls, you might as well fly one of them, I think. All right, and Declan's in with a possible solution for the GoPro lens fogging issue. There are systems called rain deflectors. They are micro spinning shields. Telesyn. I do use a bit of Telesyn. Here we go. This is a Telesyn. That's how it's spelled. Make one for the GoPro. So I'm going to have a look at that as well, actually, I think. All right. And Spicy Fist just said bad connection here, which probably leads us to it's probably about time to wrap this up. So thanks very much for tuning in. Don't forget, there's still time to enter the raffle. Get involved if you're getting out sailing this weekend. Speed stick, 6 weeks of speed competition on water speed. You can enter both at the same time. Very nice. And Ryan's done the odds. Current chances of winning the competition is 1 in 50. 50 to 1 chance. That's better than the lottery, I think. Yeah. Thanks very much to everyone. Oh, hello to Benjamin, who's just tuned in, who sails an old 16. And all right. Ryan did buy multiple tickets. So there we go. Thanks very much. Thanks to everyone. And I'll see you soon. Video tomorrow. The Hobie 14 send. Another one coming on Sunday. So yes, it's coming thick and fast at the moment on Joyrider TV. So thanks very much. And I'll see you soon with some more. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.